Video games. I know, not a Skyblock video, but too bad. Some are old and some are new, but a lot more are old.
Lots of groundbreaking games come out every single year, and many more are upcoming. But I do mean every single year for like the last 50 years. Therefore, there's a hell of a lot more video games that were released in the years prior than will ever come out for at least a good few decades to come. But you shouldn't buy them. There's thousands of great games you absolutely shouldn't miss out on, but old technology is fragile, inconvenient, and as we'll talk about in this video, unreasonably expensive. There's significantly more old stuff kicking around than brand new stuff, and objectively there's a lot less people who want to buy them.
And you'd think based on supply and demand they'd be a pretty affordable hobby to get into.
Well, no, they aren't.
Not at all. So these old machines do of course have some scarcity to them. We're talking about electronics that are like 25 years old at times. So yeah, I can understand why people aren't giving them away. But I mean, come on, some of these are not that hard to find. And if there's like 1,000 of them up for sale, then clearly the supply is way greater than the demand. And I'm no business expert, but something tells me that can't be right.
So quit spending this much.
Now, if you want to get into the hobby, you should really just keep your eyes open for a reasonable deal. Don't pay these prices because you genuinely don't have to. And I don't care if you're lazy or you think it's worth the prices because you're wrong. It's not. No, stop it. I wouldn't pay over $50 for one of these, and that's fine because they can be had for less. You'll need to look a little further than the first result on Google, but I remember when not too long ago these were like $15 on every single eBay listing. So why pay more today when it's easier than ever to play these games on your phone? And maybe they wouldn't have skyrocketed so quickly if we hadn't started lying to ourselves about their value.
I believe it comes down to the internet and elitism.
One of the problems that I think heavily contributes to the price inflation is pride. I'm looking at you price charting. People think their collection is worth a lot just because it means a lot to them. Well, I'm sorry, but that's just simply not how it works. Your red-ringed toaster isn't worth anything.
If your collection is worth so much to you, just don't sell it. And if you're just listing your clutter that you don't care about and you see that some people have theirs listed high, it doesn't mean you can just put yours at that same price. Doing so will just make the prices inflate further and the hobby will become less accessible. And just because they're listed at the price doesn't mean they will sell for it. So it's not exactly good for you either. I've also seen some videos of people finding not great, but reasonable priced video game stuff at pawn shops or whatnot. And since these people already have all the stuff they need for their collection, they say, oh, I can just list this on eBay and the listing is this much more than what I'm paying. Therefore, that's my profit. Well, no, because you have to pay eBay fees and shipping, and after all that, you're left with, maybe a couple dollars. You're not making a killing or anything. If you come across an item that you don't need and you don't want, and it's at a reasonable price, you don't have to buy it. And if you're not going to make anything off of it anyway, just let somebody else do it. And the people who do this and label it as some great breaking out of the matrix money-making method, they're just doing a disservice to everyone. It's kind of just as bad as scalping. Not quite the same thing, but I mean, come on, don't humor them.
And DK Oldies. I'm sure you've heard of them and seen critiques on their exorbitant prices, but as a collector in a relatively larger city, I know that this is nothing new. I've seen many dedicated shops charging an arm and a leg for this standard stuff, just like this beforehand. It's just now that a big player is doing this, through e-commerce, there will be much more traffic going through their site, and people will pay these prices because they just simply don't know any better, and everyone online is circle jerking their collections and their value. So you can't blame someone for looking at some of these prices and then seeing what people say on Reddit or something and think it's a reasonable price. People just don't know their options. But what is this? $400 for a PS3 Super Slim? You are kidding. Just because they make up some random price and put a sale on it doesn't mean it's a good deal. It's predatory marketing. A PS3 shouldn't cost you more than around $50, even without trying that hard to get a good deal. And what the is this? Okay, well, that's a steal. You're robbing them blind. But in all honesty, charging so much for a disc-based game is ridiculous. There's so many PlayStation, Xbox, and Wii games kicking around for pennies. Seriously, go to your oldest pawn or thrift shop and they'll have a bookcase of these things for $1 each. And they're fragile too. If you're buying used, it's more likely you're going to have some scratching, and even just in general, physical media and electronics are fragile.
DK Oldies and eBay have Skull Monkeys up for like $100, and I happen to have the same game. And you know what happened? I broke it. Well, just the case, but you know, still. I only paid $1 for this, so I don't care quite as much. But if I had paid $100, I'd go bankrupt, I swear. I only have like 250 subscribers. I can't afford this shit. I just can't believe that I've seen the day where last gen hardware can sell for the same or more than brand new current gen. Absolutely absurd.
Many won't really want to be running this old stuff every day anyway. So what are you paying for? Is it just a showpiece? Because if so, that's totally fine. But if you really want to play these games and that's it, there's a much better way.
Don't listen to the snobs. Emulation is really, really good. And sure, maybe it seems cool to you to play on original hardware, but you genuinely don't have to. In fact, emulating might be the better option in most cases. It's less clutter, less things that can break. You know, you have all your games with you all the time. What more could you ask for? Not only is emulation more convenient, the games even usually look and sound better. Now, the Game Gear and Pokemon aren't exactly a one-to-one comparison, but trust me, the Game Gear looks even better than the Game Boy Color would be. I just don't have batteries for the Game Boy, and I don't have a cable to plug it in with, which is another problem of original hardware when you're talking about handhelds. These things chew through disposable batteries like nobody's business.
Here, I'm running a Wii U game on the Steam Deck, and it can even do Switch emulation. You can connect it to a TV as well, no problem. So what do you need that this can't do?
Additionally, you don't even really need to buy something like a Steam Deck. You'll be getting by just fine if you use something like a 3DS or a PS Vita, so long as it's jailbroken. It can run pretty much any ROM you throw at it, up until probably about PS1 era, and that should be more than enough for most people's needs. And hell, even if you wanted to do like PS2 or GameCube type games, or Wii games even, like you probably got a phone in your pocket or nearby. If it's an iPhone, I mean, you might have a little bit of a harder time getting it set up, but it still is possible on either platform.
In conclusion, these guys are the spawn of Satan and greed. Don't pay for this, and if you find old game stuff you want to own for a good price, buy it. Otherwise, f*** off. And lastly, emulation is sick. If you liked the topic of this video, let me know and maybe I'll do similar ones in the future. Otherwise, join us next time to find out which Skyblock Ender Dragon is the thickest.